Hello my beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm very excited to do because I'm going to be ranking all my Juvia's Place eyeshadow palettes that I have in my collection. I have been loving Juvia's Place eyeshadow palette formula for a very long time. The eyeshadow formula from Juvia's Place definitely has evolved a little bit over time, and I'm going to be talking about all those details once we get talking about the palettes. Most of these palettes are featured on my Instagram. You can see swatches, looks, reels with look tutorials for your inspiration. All my social media links always linked for you underneath this videos in the info box. Before we get started, if you're new here, hi, my name is Eve. I love all things beauty. Here on my channel I share about makeup, skincare, hair care, and at times lifestyle things like travel, fashion, and lifestyle vlogs. If that sounds like your thing, I hope you stick around, enjoy this video, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. And now without further ado, let's dive into ranking all my Juvia's Place eyeshadow palettes. I have 10 palettes in front of me and I have purchased all these palettes with my own money. I would like to know if you own any of the Juvia's Place eyeshadow palettes, and if you do, which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. So now let's get into my ranking of the eyeshadow palettes. On the spot number 10, I do have the taupes from Juvia's Place. This is a 6-pan palette, a little bit smaller format here, a little bit more curated, or a lot more curated. So there are 3 mattes, 3 shimmers. This specific palette does not have any pigments. They are all eyeshadows. The reason why this palette is on the last spot in my ranking today, partially because of its color story, because I naturally tend to lean towards a warmer shades, for example, like the look that I'm having on my eyes today. But the biggest reason is the quality of this palette. All these 3 matte shades, they are somewhat mid-tone mattes, and there is no depth. It is somewhat monotone, and the matte shades are considerably firmly pressed. It takes a long time to build them up, and even when you build them up, the intensity is that medium intensity. You do not get depth, obviously, in this palette. And I'm considerably pale person. And as far as shimmers, they're also lacking quality. I like my shimmers, especially when we're talking about Juvia's Place. You know Juvia's Place can do pigment. You know Juvia's Place can do beautiful, foily, full pigment shimmers, like bam into your face type of shimmers. Up to my liking. I love those a lot. This is not it. I love my neutrals, and at times I do want cool tone neutrals. Generally, I would enjoy this type of scheme of shades if I wanted something within these lines, but the quality of this eyeshadow palettes, both mattes and shimmers, is easy to pass. On the spot number 9, I have a very similar palette because of the quality, completely different color story. However, the quality was lacking in my opinion, and that's the reason why this palette ended up here towards the end. So on the spot number 9, I have the Blushed Rose palette. I love this packaging. Beautiful design. I love the rosy colors, the dusty pinks, dusty roses. Those shades and tones I really like. This color story appealed to me so much. There are a few different rosy tones. Then this shade seemed to be a little bit darker for dimension, and then you get 2 different shimmer shades. They're completely different in color. So at first this palette seems like you do get a range from darker to lighter shades to create that dimension. However, when you start applying them on the eyes, they don't really look that much different. This entire palette is formulated differently. The only shade that is not a pigment is this shade right here, number 4. The rest of the 5 pans, they are pigments. Partially, this explains why it is a little bit more difficult to blend. They do blend okay on their own, and they do pack on the lid on their own really well. And you do get that payoff of color that you see here. But when you start mixing them into each other, they are somewhat on a drier side, and it's a little bit more difficult to blend them into each other. As far as this deeper shade, I really was hoping that it would give me depth in the looks. However, it doesn't really give you that much depth. When I think of Juvia's Place shimmers, I'm thinking about beautiful, creamy, punchy shimmers. The ones that are very reflective and smooth on eyes. These 2 shimmers are just sad, you guys. I know it sounds bad, but This shimmer has a texture. This shimmer has a texture. Even when you spray it, they just do not look that good on eyes. From the spot number 8, from this point on, I do have much better palettes, the ones that I actually enjoy and like, and the formulas are nice and beautiful and easy to work with. So now you can breathe out a little bit. The tension has passed. And now let's talk about nice color stories and beautiful formulas. They are lovely. So on the spot number 8, I have the Nubian 2 eyeshadow palettes. It's a little bit a larger format. This is one of their older palettes. This is a beautiful color story, a little bit more jewel tone. You get rich greens, golds, green, blue. This shade crumbled for me and I had to repress it, so that's why it's a little bit rough looking. But this is the old school Juvia's Place eyeshadow formula that we know back in how many years ago. This is creamy, this is foily, this is reflective, smooth. The matte formula is great, pigmented and easy to blend, and the shades blend into each other. On a spot number 7, I have Nomad eyeshadow palette. This is the color story that's a little bit on a smaller and more curated side. Super fun. I see summer and fall looks here. A little bit of a grungy moment going on here, which is of my liking. I think all the trends that we've been seeing lately with all the greens and all the yellows and lime tones of shades, this palette, I think it may have been forgotten, but I think it fits into this trend really well. So if you have this palette, this is your sign to take it out. I really like this palette. I don't think I give this enough love and I don't reach for it as often. As you can see, it's very lightly touched just because my collection is so large. I definitely need to pull this out. It's also a sign for me to take it out and start using, because I really like some of these like warmer shades for summer and nicely transition into a fall. This palette is primarily matte, and these two shades are shimmers and they are beautiful. The only shade that I am not very thrilled about in this palette is this yellow. It is a matte formula, however has that microfine glitter, so it makes it a little bit more powdery or a lot powdery. So whenever I would use this shade, I would prefer to use it on a stickier base. Pigment really sticks and doesn't fly away. Other than that, I really like this palette. On the spot number 6, I have the Magic Mini eyeshadow palette, and this is a color story. It's very colorful. Primarily all these shades are shimmers and they're exceptional. This palette has 6 matte shades, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and these 2 in the corners. One of them is more purple and one of them is more like very deep blue. All those 6 shades, there are pigments. The reason why I like this palette and the reason why I'm ranking it much higher is because the shimmers are so much fun in this palette. So we're in the top 5, and on the spot number 5, I do have the Bronze Rustic palette. So this is the palette that I'm wearing today on my eyes. I didn't film this makeup look because it is very straightforward. I use this in a crease. I use this shade to deepen up the outer corner and also my lower lash line, and I mixed these 2 shades on my lid. I had to spray them because they do have a little bit of texture. These 2 shades are beautiful, but I just wanted something like more bronzy and neutral vibe today. This palette is so lovely to work with. I really like the color story. So these shades are a little bit softer pressed and they're very blendable, they're buildable. Warm neutral palette, but with a twist. It's definitely not a boring palette. On spot number 4, I have a palette that is considerably new to my collection, and I've also spoken about it quite a few times already on my channel recently. And this is Garden by Juvia's. Very different color stories from anything that I'm talking about today in this stash. Pastel, very spring, summer looking, very nice and soft. I do like how this palette is organized. It's very easy to see the colors, how they go together, etc. There are some eyeshadows here and there are some pressed pigments here. The matte formulas are nice here and workable. Some of them are pigments. The shimmer formula, this is where it's at for me within this palette. Some of the shimmers are more of your toppers. They do sheer out, but they also can be built up in a little bit more opacity. So you do get that tint of color that's there. Some of the shimmers in this palette, like this purple one, they do have a little bit more of a fuller pigment. Super beautiful on eyes. The topper shimmers here, they are wet looking on the lid, which is my absolute favorite formula of the shimmers, especially if we're talking about warmer seasons. We do want that reflection. We do want a little bit of glossy skin moment. This is excellent palette. I love it so much. It's very different and it's fun. So palettes on spot number 3 and 2 could easily be flip-flopped because I think I like them equally. So here we go. On the spot number 3 is the Nubian Earth palette. This is considerably new launch, neutral color story. These shades are very pretty. Some of these shades on my skin tone give me olivey, yellowish undertones, and I absolutely love it. A very nice formula. However, it's not that thick formula that we knew from her older palettes. This is the thinner formula. However, it's easily blendable and buildable. Shades blend into each other very nicely and seamlessly. This specific shade looks like a pressed glitter, but it is not. It is an eyeshadow. This is what I'm wearing in my inner corner today. Nice and smooth, very reflective. I do have a real tutorial on this palette on my Instagram if you wanted to check it out. So on the spot number 2, I have a Nubian 3 Coral eyeshadow palette. This palette has a very special place in my collection. I absolutely love these shades and a little bit of touch of silver. Whenever I got this palette initially, I primarily purchased this palette because of this area of the palette. And I initially thought, what are these grays doing here? Until I mixed them together. If you've never tried mixing a little bit of warmer tones with some cool tones, give it a try. Just give it a try. If you don't like it, it's makeup. It's not this serious. If you don't like it, you can just wash your face and it's gonna be gone forever. I've had this palette for a few years now and the quality is still beautiful. It performs. I don't know if that thought has passed through your mind yet, but let me know if it did and let me know in the comments below. But this color story heavily reminds me of Natasha Denona Mini Zendo palette that I have here right next to me. This Natasha Denona Mini Zendo palette is considerably new to me, and I've talked about them together before on my channel because these are like perfect sisters. This palette is an extension of this palette, and the qualities of course are different. The reason why I even purchased this palette recently is because I already love this color story so much and I knew I was gonna like this color story within the Natasha Denona smaller palette. On the spot number 1, some of you may be surprised, as some of you may not. I've featured this palette recently in this video on my channel, creating the look with it. This is a palette that is so much fun and I think it's such a fun color story and very unique. This is Allure 3. It is a 6-pan palette. It is tiny, but it is so much fun to my opinion. I really love these bright colors. They look beautiful in skin. These two shades are beautiful. They are different enough. One is a little bit more subdued, one is a little bit more punchy. They work together very well as well. And this shade is my absolute favorite. It does look a little bit intimidating, but it does go with this entire color story so well. It seems like how you're gonna mix all the shades, but once you do, you would see that it comes out beautifully, very cohesive and different at the same time. I love this palette so much. It's so much fun and the quality is very nice to work with. So this is my stash of JUVIA'S Place eyeshadow palettes in my collection. Comment below this video. Let me know what your favorite JUVIA'S Place eyeshadow palette is. What do you even like the formula at all? Let's chat in the comment section below. And if you do enjoy eyeshadow palette conversations and look tutorials, I will leave the playlists in the end of this video in the cards for you to enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, and if you did, give this a big thumb up. It does help my channel out. If you are not yet a subscriber, I invite you to do so before you leave today. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today, and I will see you in my next videos. Bye.